Hi there, it's Carl Irwin, the Common Magician. I've got something very interesting to show you here. I've got a deck of cards, and we're going to do something really unusual with these cards. What I want to do is we're going to shuffle them, but we're going to shuffle them in a most unusual way. If I take them here like this, we're going to shuffle them so that half the cards are facing one way and half of the cards are facing the other way. So it'll look like this. We're shuffling kind of half facing up into half facing down, and we'll just push these together and spring them together. And if you take a look here, we have a really super messed up situation. You can see that some cards are facing up, some cards are facing down. You can get a really good look at it here. If I lay it out, you see it's quite a sad state. Some are face to face, right? Some are back to back. Very mixed up. This is a mixed up deck of cards. I think you will agree, right? Now, I want to try something real quick here. I want you to name any card that comes to mind. Not the five of spades, obviously, but name any card that comes to mind. And go ahead and name it. And you have the nine of spades. The nine of spades. Now, this is really interesting. I'm going to do something very strange. I want you, and you have to promise me you're not going to freak out. You're not going to run out of the room before I fix everything. Okay, you just kind of have to trust me, have an open mind, and go along with me. I want you to look at the cards. As you're looking at the cards, I'm going to snap my fingers in a moment. And what's going to happen is everything to you from that point on will appear to be right. Everything will appear to be right, except for one thing. Okay, take a look. Focus on the cards, eyes open. Now take a look. You can see everything appears to be right again. Everything, I don't know if you saw that, everything but one thing. If you take a look inside the deck, there is one thing that is not right. Out of all the cards, you see there's one card that's facing the wrong way, one and only one. And if we take that out and look at it, it is the nine of spades. Now, I don't want to leave you in this state. Go ahead and look at the cards again. Stare at them. If you walk out of here, who knows what you would look at that wouldn't be the way it really seems. Go ahead and look at the cards. And you should be right now. Because you can see nothing has changed with the cards. They really are all mixed up. Everything is in disarray, just as we started with. But just for a moment in time, you could see the one thing that you were focused on. So I want to start this by saying, and this is one of my favorite lines in discussions, and it's given the last couple of videos on this topic. I want to say that I don't have the time or energy to explain everything that I don't mean by what I say. Okay, I don't have the time or energy to explain everything that I don't mean by what I say. There's a couple things I do mean when I speak, and as with anybody when they speak, there's hundreds or thousands of things that I don't mean, and I don't mean any of those things, okay? So I only have the time and the energy to explain what I mean, right, by what I say. So I do not see this presentation as a resolution of any perceived problems with the trick related to what we're going to look at here. I don't see this as a solution to something that isn't necessarily a problem for most people. Okay. If you, however, see this as a solution, great. I am not suggesting that it is. All right, I'm suggesting merely that there is a way in which this could be done that has a kind of clean outcome that someone might desire. But I'm not saying this is better. That's one of the things that I am not saying, and here I've just taken the time and the energy to say it. There are hundreds of other things that I'm not saying that I don't have the time or energy to explain. So let me just say what I mean. This is the invisible deck. It is the invisible deck. This isn't some other way to do the effect of the invisible deck as we know it. I didn't even give the invisible deck plot, the narrative. So therein is it the invisible deck. I don't want to rehash that again. But this is an invisible deck and the gimmick. And this is a presentation based on just a conversation that was happening over the last couple videos with those of you online about what in effect is. Is it a magical occurrence, a material magical occurrence, or is it a feat of mentalism, or is it a feat of control, right? And those are kind of the three distinct categories of magic that I can think about. There may be others or subcaptions to those, but those are kind of the three big ones that come to my mind. You either have a material effect where something magical physically is happening, a penetration, a transformation, these kinds of things. And then you have mental magic, which is a prediction. Or there's another category of mentalism, which is not merely prediction, but it is perception, the narrative of perception. This is very key to the concept of hypnotic suggestion and hypnosis and stage hypnotism, Darren Brown kind of stuff, right? So that's also part of mentalism, but it flirts with the tenets of material magic, because when you're dealing in perception, things may appear by the narrative, may appear to be magical and inexplicable in terms of the action. Right? In this kind of mode of mentalism, things appear to penetrate one another. Things appear to transform. There's an appearance of a change, but it is understood to be merely a mental suggestion of it. Okay, so there's that. That's another part of mentalism that some mentalists subscribe to, and is a way in which a mentalist can do material magical effects as part of a mentalism routine and get away with it, right? Then there is control, which I don't think this relates to that at all, but control would be, although there's an element of this that is part of the part of those tenets of control magic, card control, gambling routines and whatnot that we'll get to in a moment, but it's not overt. It's not being stated in the open. Okay. So in that discussion of the differences of effect, the invisible deck either being a mentalism prediction, a mentalist feat that a card is turned over and predicted just wholesale, that is what the effect is, right? You named something and I'm showing that I predicted it, or that it was predicted. Or is it the act of something happening? I have an invisible deck of cards. Imagine taking this card out, turn it over, and putting it back in upside down, put it away. Oh, here it is now. You can see it. And something has happened. And I'm not saying that can't also be viewed as a prediction. Again, I don't have the time to explain all that again and explain the things that I don't mean. But therein in the narrative, the idea is that it is a physical, material kind of effect. This is not about that. This is about using the invisible deck for other things that are not specifically the invisible deck narrative or the invisible deck prediction effect. Okay. One of the things that came up was triumph. Triumph. You could use an invisible deck for triumph. You just kind of spread them out and show that cards are facing up and down, and then you can spread it so that they're not, right? And the one problem I had with that in the discussion as it was brought up was if it was used for a triumph routine, it would be very dirty. It'd be very dirty triumph. You certainly couldn't examine the cards. And it would be more dirty than the invisible deck because there's a greater heat in an effect like that. When you're doing something so prevalent with the cards, it involves all of the cards, and it is a visual, material, magical effect, the interest on those cards increases significantly. Whereas with the invisible deck, even under the magical narrative involving only one card, the interest on the deck as a whole is still very low, right? And usually in that effect, the interest on the deck is non-existent. No one's really interested in it. You normally will get caught with the invisible deck as a gimmick when you're in company that is very familiar, friends, family, and the question comes up, hey, I know a good card trick, can I see those? And the answer is no, you can't see the cards. And the reason you can't see the cards is because they're gimmicked, but you can't say that, right? So that's more likely to happen in terms of exposing the invisible deck under the general prediction or invisible cards narrative. However you want to look at it, and either one of those two very different effects. Yes, they are very different effects. We get that. So I'm not posing, again, things I'm not suggesting. I'm not suggesting that there's a big problem with the invisible deck gimmick that needs to be solved. I'm not suggesting that it's like I don't want to do the invisible deck because it's a gimmick deck of cards and I don't want to get caught. I want to be clean. I'm not saying this is a solution to that. However, it does provide that kind of outcome. I'll call this the hot rod clean. Okay, this is the hot rod. You know what a hot rod is? The color stick or the gem stick, right? Where you show it's got 6 different gem colors on it or 6 different stickers, colored stickers, and they somehow pick one of those, and then you turn all of them with a swipe of the hand or a flick of the stick. All of the colors turn to that color, and you can show it on both sides. Paddle trick, right? You show it on both sides. And then there is the hot rod cleanup, right? Which a lot of people hate this, right? The hot rod cleanup is where you take the stick and you say, now if I rub the other side, all of those will turn to the color that you picked. Will turn back to the color that you picked. And then you have a stick that has one side that has all the different colors and one side that has all the color they picked. And by doing that, you end clean because that's the nature of the stick, and they can look at the stick in that state, right? You don't end where they're all normal, or you don't end where they're all in one color, and you can't let them see the stick. So the hot rod cleanup, again, some people really hate that, but it is a way to do it. And the reason why people hate it is because it kind of points to the method, right? It doesn't really point to the move part of the method necessarily, but it points to the nature of the thing that you're working with. So, that's people are on different sides. I'll just say whenever I do the hot rod, I always end with that anyway, just because I'd prefer to be in that state and risk giving it up, at least partially, in terms of what the stick is. If I ever perform it. I don't perform the thing very much, but I've always done that. I always end with that. This is that kind of ending with much less risk. We're actually ending clean. We're clean. We are what I think we'll call, hot rod clean. I'll call it Craig Petty clean. If you know, you know, okay? This is Craig Petty clean. And I mean that in the best way. It's that clean. It is clean. I agree. Craig Petty clean is clean. That's where I'm at in that argument, okay? This ends you there, at least, in terms of the deck of cards. No one will be interested in it because there's nothing really to look at, and whatever there is to look at is easily demonstrated, and the interest just goes rock bottom. There's nothing to find, okay? Nothing to find. So it gives us that, but it also gives us another effect. So you end up with the invisible deck kind of effect, although not the prediction side of it. So those of you who think that it's merely that and it's only that, it can only be that, that is what it is. I'm sorry to say this is not that. This is a material effect. It's a material effect. However, with the right presentation, it becomes a feat of mentalism, but not the kind of mentalism that you think, which is a prediction mentalism. Or a force. I made you say that, but you don't know how I made you pick that card. Or I made you pick the one I turned over. Or I knew what you were going to say based on whatever kinds of influences, and therefore I was able to predict. It's not that kind. This is the mentalism in terms of hypnotic suggestion kind of idea, right? So that's a whole lot to talk about before going over the trick, Okay, but anyway, this is the idea. You have an invisible deck. This is the gimmick. I actually just made this one today. I made this gimmick earlier in the day. I had the day off of work. Federal holiday today, Veterans Day, so I made this, and I made it mostly because I wanted to test out a couple things. This has been my go-to invisible deck for many, many, many years, and as you can see here, there's a couple things kind of separating on it already. It's a little worn out. It's a regular deck of cards. It's a regular bicycle deck. And I made this many years ago, and the method that I used for this was the hairspray method. So I laid the cards out back facing up, okay, like this, and I sprayed the whole deck lightly with a mist of pressurized aerosol hairspray. And that is a long-standing way to make an invisible deck. Now, the problem with that is that it will break down over time. It will age and flake off. But also, doing that is that hairspray is soluble, so that if you're in high humidity, that can get soft again and get sticky in the wrong kind of way, right? So in terms of the element, the rough, smooth element that makes that work, it can fail over time, as you see here, okay? So this has been my go-to deck for probably 20 years. Okay, I've had this one. It's the only one I've had. I've used it, haven't used it in many years, and it's obviously worse for the wear. I was wondering about plastic cards. I have very much favored plastic cards over the last 5 or 6 years, to the point where I almost exclusively use plastic cards for everything. I don't do cardistry, and I don't do a lot of flourishing. So I don't need to have an epic pressure fan, right? I just don't do that. But I do a lot of gambling sleights, cheating sleights, and plastic cards are certainly up to the task for that, and they will last a very long time. If you have a problem with plastic, first of all, they don't react to humidity and changes in temperature. They stay the same and consistent. If you get something on a card or two, you can just rinse it off with water, dry it off completely, throw it back in the deck, and it's just like it was before. So I have very much favored plastic cards, and I was wondering if I could make a invisible deck with a plastic deck. So what I did is I took this one. This is a plastic, 100% plastic cards, knockoff stuff. I mean, this is not even Copag. It's not even a nice brand. This is just a Chinese knockoff from Amazon. And it's got an embossed kind of feature on it too, which is unusual for plastic cards. But they're good. I got these a long time ago. I really like the back design. I thought it was, it's classic, kind of ornate and classic. I really enjoyed it. So I've bought these for a while in red and blue. I don't have one out here, but I got the same thing in blue. Really pretty kind of design, poker size cards. So I thought I'll take one of these and see how it comes out as a invisible deck. So what I did, because I wanted it to last, and because they're plastic, is I used this, which is the better way to make one than the classic hairspray solution. This is just a matte finish clear coat. Matte. It needs to be a matte finish, not a satin, certainly not gloss, but matte. Matte finish clear acrylic. Okay, so it's just an acrylic Rust-Oleum spray, and I laid them out, backs facing up. And the way you do this is you spray a light mist over it, maybe give it 2 passes. Nothing more than that, a light mist fully over the entire deck. Don't miss any cards, make sure it covers them fully, but a light mist all the way around. And then you let it dry completely, make sure that it's not soft, make sure it's not sticky. Let it dry completely, give it a couple hours. Usually this stuff will dry within a few minutes, but give it a couple hours so that it's properly cured. And because it's such a thin mist coat, it will fully cure in that short of a time. And then you have a rough, smooth deck that works really, really well. I mean, this holds. I can spread it right on the table like that, and they do not separate. Yet, in the hands, if I do the proper grip, so the proper grip too, if you're using an invisible deck, The proper grip is to grab the card from both sides. So my fingers are actually all the way around to the back side. I'm touching it here, and my thumb is here. And then I just push the two away using my hand, the single hand, one hand. So rather than two hands, use one hand to separate those two cards. One is pulling from the far end, one is pushing from the middle, and they separate quite easily, and you're able to separate the card out to show. Okay, so without getting any further into the gimmick, that's not really about, exposing the gimmick. That's not what I'm up to. Without getting into that, let me talk about the presentation. So here's the way this works. You start with a regular invisible deck, and the nice thing about this is that it is instant reset like the regular thing, and you still end clean, Craig Petty clean, okay? Hot rod clean. It's hot rod clean, okay? It's kind of points to the method, but not really, because the method in this case is considerably more sophisticated than that of the hot rod. But you do essentially expose the state at the end in a way, okay, but not in a way that can be discovered. So you start regular. You don't ask for a card at the beginning. You just take the cards out. Now, I carry just the way I am. I carry the invisible deck, have for a long time, using a suit grouping. And my suit grouping follows what I use for my personal memorized deck and stack work, which you can find on my ebook, Random, available at Penguin. But I use hearts and spades for all number cards, and against clubs, diamonds for all court cards. And by doing that, I can spread, and you see every suit. So you see spades, hearts, clubs, and diamonds. But if you took a close look, you would see that all the number cards are either diamonds or clubs in this situation, and all of the court cards are spades and hearts. All right, so I think about it in that way. And by doing that, diamonds and clubs. Yeah, that's right. So spades and hearts on the other side for court cards, clubs and diamonds for court cards on this side. By doing that, I can match red to red, black to black. So if I need, the three of diamonds, I'm going for this one, and then that's my hit right there. So anyway, that's just my organization. And even with a spread like that, you don't notice the prevalence of a particular suit, because all four suits do exist there with those court cards kind of mixed in. So you'll see chunks of hearts and chunks of spades, but you always run into a diamond or a club, right? Anyway, neither here nor there, just a recommendation if you're using an invisible deck and you want to organize it in a way that is really, really easy to think about without having to do any kind of mental gymnastics on the fly to hit the right card. Okay, anyway, that's how I do it. So you take the cards out, and you only show one side, and you need a table for this handling. You show the cards in spread, and you say, I've got a deck of cards here. I think I said on there I did the one, Magician Sin, one of them. There's many. And I said it's a completely normal deck of cards. You don't say that. That's bad language. I apologize, right? But you say, I've got a deck of cards here. Never say I've got a normal deck of cards here, because you're running when you're not being chased. Here's a deck of cards. I want to try something really unusual. We're going to shuffle the cards, but I'm going to do it in a weird way. Now, here's what I discovered when playing around with an invisible deck. And let me just see this on the other one. I found that when you take an invisible deck, and there are probably parts of what I'm going to talk about here that are not original. I absolutely accept that. I'm sure someone has talked about some of this stuff or noticed it before. There's probably write-ups about the invisible deck gimmick and ways that it can be used that will cover some of the things I have discovered or reinvented. I just take that as a likelihood, okay? But I noticed that with an invisible deck, when you have it square, when you go to riffle, it riffles almost always at the splits. So you mostly see backs. Okay, this one doesn't do it as much because it doesn't, I don't think, yeah, there we go. And the reason why that is, I think, is because, and I'll show you on this one, because this is a very fresh, brand new deck. When I do this, you see backs. And you might see a face or two pop up in there, but backs, it wants to split. And I find that it wants to split probably because they're square, and in the process of bending, it takes two cards and bends them in square, right? And by doing that, it breaks open the split. And then it kind of acts like a short. I mean, there's other decks. I don't want to get into the other decks that are out there, but you can Svengali deck, many Tekel kind of effect because of the rough smooth and the fact that they're square. Okay, so I just find that it does that, which means that it's got some implications for us. It means that whenever I riffle on the back, it means that I can very easily spot a back when I'm looking at faces. And that's important for what I'm going to do. But it also means something else. It means that if I dribble the cards, I dribble from corner to corner, it means that if I dribble, it means it will create separation pretty automatically because of that flex. And when I do this, if I insert the other hand in, I can actually get them to spread intermittently so you see backs and faces. This is important for later, okay? So we're in this state. We've shown the cards, got a deck of cards. You could do it this way too, just in the normal way. Apply your pressure, show the cards normal. And then I say we're going to mix the cards, but we're going to mix it in a strange way. When I riffle, I'm looking at backs, and I'm going to split so that there's a smaller chunk on the bottom than on the top where my face card is at, smaller with a back facing up. And then what I do is this really strange kind of fumble, because I need to separate these so it looks like I'm turning them over. So what I did is I split it, and then I brought it to my body, and then I just tilt this side back like this, right? Tilt this side back like this, and then I bring it out like this so that they're both facing up, and then I turn it over like this. So it looks kind of even I'm not taking my hands off of anything. I'm still in the same state I was. So I riffle, pull it back against the body, bring it out like this, turn it over. It just gives the impression that I have cut the deck and turned over half of it. Now what I'm going to do is do a very, very rough, this is a pharaoh, but it's not a real pharaoh. I'm just going to try to insert the smaller packet into the larger packet, and I just want to make sure, and they will pharaoh against each other, I just want to make sure that I get the face card facing up. Okay, so I'm in this situation, and I want to also do this so that I only get about 1/4 of an inch of the cards interlaced. So I just kind of wedge them together like this, give it a little rub. Plastic are good for this too, because you won't hurt them. And because they're square cut, they actually pharaoh really, really well. It's a little knacky. You got to learn it at first, but once you learn with plastic cards how to pharaoh them, you'll actually hit pharaohs pretty consistently when you're trying to get a true pharaoh every time. It's a little tip. So, and then I show the side like this. I can demonstrate that the cards are interleaved. So half are facing down, half are facing up. Now comes the actual fake. I'm not going to mix the cards. If I mix the cards, I'll mess up the deck because some of these are actually split. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn, I put my hand over the top, so I put them together. I put my hand over the top, I grab the top part, which is the face cards, and I'm holding the bottom part with my palm and fingers like this. I'm actually going to separate the cards like this. They're gonna make a little riffly sound as they come apart, right? And this sounds like a bridge effect, like what you would do with a Pharaoh shuffle. So to bring us back here again, I'm gonna interlace them, show that they're interlaced. I'm putting face down into face up. Then I bring them over here, I separate them, and then all I do is I square the actual top over the actual bottom, right? And now what I can do is I can show that the cards are mixed face up into face down. The way you do this is you just have a full dealing grip, mechanics kind of grip, fingers all the way on the other side, spread out, spread a couple cards face up, grab the next one, separate it smoothly, do a couple more, and here it doesn't matter if they separate. Handle it very lightly, don't separate every other one, but go like maybe 2 face up cards and then separate like this. And I can do this for a little while to show the state, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to square them, and I say you can really see it here. I'm going to dribble the cards down on the table, and I insert this other hand to just kind of brush them out. And you can see that the cards are in a really, really mixed up state. Now that's a shuffled deck of cards, right? Now we're going to try something really, really strange. Okay, you're going to find this really unusual. What I want you to do, and I'm holding the deck perpendicular now, so I have a face down. By the way, just a real quick thing. When you do this, you can actually show quite freely in a way that you can't with most Triumph methods. Okay, I can actually pick up the cards at the break, at the middle here, like this, and I can actually turn them over. I can go, you can see the cards are really mixed up because I really can show both sides. This is really powerful, right? Because there's nothing I'm hiding. It's an invisible deck that I don't have to hide. It's a gimmick that is way out in the open, right? As long as these go back together the way that they came apart, I can show that. So now what you do is you square it, hold it perpendicular, and then you have them name a card. So here we'll name a card, we'll say the 4 of spades. Now this is a 4 of spades. This is the spade side for the numbers. That means that the clubs side is on that side. I need to get spade side down. So all I'm going to do is from the perpendiculars, I'm going to set the cards down. And I can, because they were mixed cattywampus, right? It doesn't have to be, there's no expectation for them to see the 5 of spades. I can do that, right? I set it down this way, going for the 4 of spades. And then this is my presentation. And the reason why I use this presentation, this mentalism kind of hypnosis sort of thing, is because it allows me the out at the end. If I do this in such a way where I do a real triumph and everything is made right, I'm not clean at the end. I want to be clean. I can be. Why not? And I can still get my effect done. And I get the best of every world. I'm doing a mentalism routine, but I'm also doing a material magical routine, right? Because it doesn't matter. They don't have to accept my premise of hypnosis. It doesn't matter. They can accept it or they cannot. Either way, I did a trick, a good one, right? So anyway, this is what I'm using. I say, I want you to look at the cards in a moment here as you're focusing on them. I'm going to snap my fingers. And when I snap my fingers, to you, everything is going to appear right. It won't be, but to you, it will appear right. Only to you. Except for one thing. One very interesting thing you'll see. Go ahead and take a look at the cards. Stare at them. Focus on them. And now you can see that everything appears right. And I give an honest spread. Quickly, I can see it here. And I'm going to be going for my 4 in a moment. And I don't have to know where it is. I'm just showing them up. And then I'm going to miscall the situation. I'm going to say everything is right, except for one thing. I'm not sure if you saw it in there, but if you look, you can see that there's one card in the deck. As all the cards are facing up, there's one card in the deck that is facing the wrong way. One card only. Now, one thing I didn't do in the presentation at the beginning is I can make this so that I am reset as well. If I break here at that card and bring it to the top, I can then show the card and its split mate is on the bottom, which means all I have to do is pick that card up, put it back in the box, and the whole thing is reset. So if I cut at that point at the split mate, then I'm good. But I can show that card. You can see the 4 of spades is the only one that appears to be facing the wrong way. Now, I don't want to leave you in this state, because if I leave you thinking this, who knows what you'll go out there see in the world. You might see things that are all goofed up. You might see cars driving backwards when they're actually driving forward. We don't want that. So please take a look at the cards one more time. Really focus on them. I'll snap again. And now everything is back the way it was. You can see nothing has actually changed at all. The cards are really shuffled up in a very chaotic way. So now I am Craig Petty clean, right? This is clean. It's examinable. Would I want someone picking these up and touching them and feeling them around? No, I wouldn't want that. But as far as like taking some cards and, showing them, and you can see that it's, I wouldn't do this either. I wouldn't go like that, right? So, but I mean, it's examinable because it's sitting there and it is what it is. There's nothing to look at in this state. Cards are facing up and facing down. It's obviously what it is. And likewise, I can pick it up. I can pick it up in this state and show it very freely again. And instant reset. I pick up that card and I have it back with my mate. Actually, I have to turn it over first. I have it back with the mate. I put this back in the box and I'm ready to start over again. I've got a deck of cards here. We're going to try something really interesting. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to we're going to try to shuffle one side into the other facing the wrong way. You can see how the cards are like this. One is facing, half the deck is facing down, half of the deck is facing up. Really, really mixed up, really, really unusual. And you can see that the situation is quite strange. You can see that we have some cards facing up, we've got some cards facing down. In fact, you can see the whole deck here just like this. You can see how messed up everything really is. You've got cards facing every other way. It's a real total mess. Let's try something really interesting. Go ahead and name a card. Think of any card you want at all. They name it, you go on, you do the thing, right? So anyway, that's a treatment of the invisible deck gimmick that also gets you triumph and that one sort of prediction-y sort of thing, but it's a completely different effect. It's not a prediction in this way. It is a, it's a mentalism, hypnotic suggestion is what it appears to be. You could still use that kind of idea. To you, it will look like everything is right, but I want you to imagine that you reach in there and invisibly take out the card that you were thinking of. What was it, the Four of Spades? And turn it over and slide it back in. Everything's going to appear normal to you except for the change that you made. The one change that you made in your mind. In fact, you can see here, everything is normal. Everything is normal. Except for, and then you go through and you do the reveal. So anyway, just a few thoughts on that. Again, I am not suggesting that this is a fix for something for the invisible deck that was broken. That's not what I'm saying. I don't have the time and energy to say it, but here I am saying it because someone's going to suggest that that's what I'm saying, but it isn't. I'm saying that yes, you can use the gimmick for a whole lot of other things, including triumph, and there's ways that you can routine triumph so that it is clean. It's not even really a dirty ending to the triumph effect by bringing in some different kind of perspectives, different effect perspectives that help you get there. In this case being hypnotic suggestion, a mentalism act. Anyway, best luck with all of that, and don't forget, clear matte acrylic. I know there's other products out there for rough smooth. I think you can't go wrong with that. You really can't go wrong with that. And hey, who knew? Plastic cards works really well. Your invisible deck could potentially last you a very, very long time because it's got an acrylic bonded coating and they are plastic. So not soluble. This is, thick as good as you can get for an invisible deck. Homemade, better than what you buy. Anyway, best of luck with that and happy magicking.